My name is Jack Thompson, and I used to be a talented publicist in New York City, working for one of the top advertising agencies in the business. At least, that's how I used to introduce myself. But everything changed when I lost my job during one of the darkest periods of my life. It all started with a devastating personal crisis. My marriage of 10 years with Emily fell apart. We had grown distant, and our relationship became strained to the point of no return. The divorce was messy, filled with arguments and accusations. It left me feeling betrayed and utterly broken. To make matters worse, just as I was navigating through this emotional turmoil, I was called into my boss's office. "Jack, I'm sorry," my boss Richard said, avoiding my eyes. "We have to let you go. The company is downsizing, and your department is one of the first to be affected." I was stunned. "But Richard, I've been here for years. I've given everything to this job. This can't be happening." "I know, Jack. Believe me, I wish it were different. But my hands are tied," Richard replied, his voice heavy with regret. With my professional life crumbling alongside my personal life, I retreated into a shell. I moved into a small, dingy apartment in Brooklyn, far from the bustling streets of Manhattan that once felt like home. I cut off contact with friends and family. The only person who seemed genuinely concerned was Michael, my childhood friend, who refused to give up on me. "Jack, you can't keep doing this to yourself," Michael said one evening, his voice filled with frustration. "You're better than this. You need to get back on your feet." I sighed, feeling the weight of his words, but lacking the energy to respond. "I just need time, Michael." "Time won't heal everything if you don't take action," he insisted. "Look, I know you're hurting, but isolating yourself isn't the answer. Let me help you." Despite his best efforts, I remained withdrawn. Nights stretched into weeks, and weeks into months. My days became a blur of self-pity and alcohol. One particularly bleak evening, as I rummaged through some old boxes, I stumbled upon a collection of letters from my late father. He had passed away years ago, but his words still carried weight. "Jack, life will knock you down, but what matters is how you get back up. You have the strength within you to overcome anything. Don't let setbacks define you. Rise above them." Reading those words, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. My father had always been my rock, and even from beyond the grave, he was urging me to stand up and fight. The next morning, I called Michael. "Hey, are you free to talk?" I asked, my voice trembling with vulnerability. "Of course, Jack, and what's on your mind?" Michael replied, sounding relieved. "I've been thinking about what you said, about getting back on my feet. I found some old letters from my dad, and they made me realize I can't keep living like this. I need to try again." Michael's voice softened. "That's great to hear, Jack. I'm here for you every step of the way." With Michael's support, I decided to take small steps towards rebuilding my life. I started by cleaning my apartment, throwing away the empty bottles and remnants of my self-destructive habits. I began to venture outside, taking walks around the neighborhood, letting the fresh air clear my mind. One day, while sorting through some old belongings, I found my portfolio, a tangible reminder of my skills and accomplishments. I spent hours going through it, rediscovering my passion for advertising and creativity. It was then that I realized I still had something valuable to offer. That night, I called Michael again. "I think I'm ready to start looking for work," I said, determination seeping into my voice. "That's the spirit, Jack," Michael responded, his enthusiasm palpable. "Let's get your resume polished and start reaching out to some contacts. We'll find you something." It wasn't an easy journey, but with Michael's unwavering support and the inspiration from my father's letters, I began to see a glimmer of hope. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a series of unexpected events that would not only transform my career, but also heal my emotional wounds. As I sat in my cramped Brooklyn apartment, the words from my father's old letters echoed in my mind, urging me to break free from my self-imposed isolation. It was Michael who finally got through to me, convincing me to take a walk with him in Central Park. The air was crisp, filled with the sounds of life and laughter, a stark contrast to the darkness I had been enveloped in for months. "Jack, you need to get out more," Michael said, his voice filled with concern. You've been cooped up in that apartment for too long? There are opportunities out there, but you'll never find them if you don't look. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely convinced. It was easier to wallow in my misery than to face the uncertainties of the world. But as we walked, something shifted. The park was bustling with energy, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was then that we met Sarah. She was sitting on a bench, her young son playing nearby. Michael, ever the social butterfly, struck up a conversation with her. I was reluctant at first, but Sarah's warm smile and genuine interest in people drew me in. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she said, extending her hand. "And this is my son, Max." "Nice to meet you," I replied, shaking her hand. "I'm Jack." As we talked, I learned that Sarah was a consultant for startups. She had an uncanny ability to see potential in people and ideas, something I sorely needed at that moment. "You know, Jack," she said thoughtfully, "there's a networking event for entrepreneurs this weekend. I think you should come. You never know who you might meet." I hesitated, the old fear of rejection and failure bubbling up, but Michael nudged me, sensing my reluctance. "Come on, Jack, what do you have to lose?" he urged. With a deep breath, I agreed. That evening, I found myself at a trendy co-working space in Manhattan, surrounded by ambitious entrepreneurs and innovators. It was overwhelming, but also invigorating. I was nursing a drink at the bar when I met Lisa. She was magnetic, with an aura of confidence that was impossible to ignore. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself sharing my ideas on marketing and advertising, something I hadn't done in months. "Jack, your ideas are incredible," Lisa said, her eyes lighting up. "I'm looking for a director of marketing for my startup. We're working on sustainable technology, and I think you'd be perfect for the job. How about an interview?" I was taken aback. It felt like a lifeline had been thrown my way just as I was about to drown. "Really, I'd love to," I stammered, hardly believing my luck. The interview went well, and Lisa offered me the position on the spot. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. Working at the startup was challenging and exhilarating. My confidence began to return, and I found myself pouring my heart into the projects. Sarah and I grew closer, and she became a confidante, someone who understood the struggles I had been through. One evening, we were sitting in a cafe talking about our lives. "Jack, I'm really proud of you," she said softly. "You've come so far in such a short time." "Thanks, Sarah," I replied, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you and Michael." As the weeks passed, I realized that the job wasn't just about revitalizing my career. It was also about healing my emotional wounds. I was rediscovering who I was and what I was capable of. Sarah's unwavering support and Lisa's belief in my potential were the catalysts I needed to rebuild my life. One afternoon, Lisa called me into her office. "Jack, I just wanted to say that your work has been phenomenal," she said, smiling. "We're making real progress, and I couldn't have done it without you." "Thank you, Lisa," I replied, genuinely touched. It means a lot to hear that. That night, as I walked through the bustling streets of New York, I felt a sense of purpose and belonging that I hadn't felt in years. The city that had once seemed so unforgiving now felt like a place of endless possibilities. It was then that I knew I was on the right path, not just professionally, but personally as well. Sarah and Max had become important parts of my life, and I was beginning to see a future where the pain of the past was a distant memory. I was finally healing, one step at a time, and it felt like a light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel. After being hired by Lisa, I found myself diving headfirst into the world of startups, a stark contrast to the corporate environment I was used to. The company was a small but ambitious tech firm focused on sustainable solutions, and from day one, I knew it was going to be a challenging ride. My role as the new director of marketing was crucial, and I felt the weight of the responsibility immediately. "Jack, I'm counting on you to bring a fresh perspective to our marketing strategy. Lisa said during our first official meeting. We need to attract more investors, and I believe your creativity is exactly what we need. Don't worry, Lisa, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I've got a few ideas up my sleeve. And so, I immersed myself in brainstorming sessions, late-night work marathons, and endless cups of coffee. My initial campaigns showed promise, and slowly but surely, we began to see an uptick in investor interest. It was a small victory, but it felt incredibly rewarding. With each passing day, my confidence grew, and I started to feel like my old self again. Meanwhile, Sarah and I grew closer. Our friendship was a source of immense comfort. She had a knack for knowing when I needed to vent and when I needed a pep talk. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the office, we met for coffee at a cozy cafe in Brooklyn. "How's everything at the startup?" Sarah asked, her eyes full of genuine concern. "It's a roller coaster," I admitted, taking a sip of my coffee. "But in a good way. I feel like I'm finally making a difference." "I'm so proud of you, Jack," she said, smiling warmly. "You've come a long way from where you were a few months ago." "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without your support," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. "You've been my rock." As our bond deepened, so did my commitment to the startup. However, challenges soon arose. The company was facing severe financial hurdles, and the looming threat of failure was ever present. To make matters worse, Tom, a skeptical investor and longtime rival of Lisa, started to interfere with my campaigns. His constant criticisms and attempts to undermine my efforts created a tense atmosphere. "Jack, we need to talk," Lisa said one afternoon, her expression serious. "Tom is causing trouble again. He's spreading doubt among the investors about our new campaign." "That guy," I muttered, frustration bubbling up. "He's been a thorn in our side since day one. But I have a plan. It's risky, but it might just work." "I'm listening," Lisa said, leaning forward with interest. I laid out my strategy, a bold and innovative campaign that would showcase our technology's potential in a way that was impossible to ignore. It was a gamble, but it was our best shot at turning things around. As we launched the campaign, the tension in the office was palpable. Days turned into nights, and the pressure was immense. Tom's attempts to sabotage our efforts only intensified, but I refused to back down. I was determined not to let him derail everything we had worked so hard for. "Jack, are you sure about this?" Sarah asked one evening, her voice filled with concern. "It's a huge risk." "I know," I replied, my jaw set with determination. "But it's a risk we have to take. I can't let Tom win." My resolve paid off. Slowly but surely, the campaign gained traction, attracting the attention of major investors. The tide was turning in our favor, and the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. "Jack, you did it!" Lisa exclaimed, beaming with pride. "The investors are on board, and it's all thanks to you." "It's a team effort," I said, my heart swelling with gratitude. "We did this together." Despite the victories, Tom was not ready to admit defeat. He launched a smear campaign against me, spreading false information about my personal and professional life. It was a harsh blow, but with the unwavering support of Sarah and Lisa, I decided to confront him head-on. During a crucial meeting with the investors, I presented irrefutable evidence of Tom's sabotage. The room fell silent as I laid out the facts, and the investors' expressions shifted from doubt to anger. "Tom, your actions are unacceptable," one of the investors said sternly. "We can't continue working with someone who undermines the company's success." With Tom finally out of the picture, the startup thrived. The sense of relief and triumph was indescribable. As my professional life flourished, my personal life also began to heal. The challenges had brought me closer to Sarah, and our friendship blossomed into something deeper. Reflecting on the journey, I realized how far I had come. The setbacks and struggles had not only transformed my career, but also healed my emotional wounds. I had found a new sense of purpose and a renewed belief in myself. The future looked brighter than ever, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. As the strategy I painstakingly devised began to show promising results, the startup garnered the attention of several major investors. Lisa, clearly impressed by my determination and creativity, called me into her office one afternoon. "Jack, can you come in for a moment?" she asked, standing at the door of her office. "Sure, Lisa," I replied, feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity. When I stepped inside, Lisa closed the door behind me and motioned for me to sit down. "I've been really impressed with your work," she began. "You've brought in a lot of potential investors, and your ideas have really set us apart from the competition. I want to offer you a stake in the company." I was taken aback. "A stake in the company? Are you serious?" "Absolutely," she said with a warm smile. "You deserve it. You've proven your value here." I felt a surge of pride. This was the validation I had been yearning for ever since my life had spiraled out of control. "Thank you, Lisa. This means a lot to me. However, my newfound sense of accomplishment was soon threatened. Tom, the ever-skeptical investor and my perpetual antagonist, wasn't ready to let me succeed. He launched a malicious campaign, spreading false information about my personal and professional life. Rumors circulated that I was unreliable and had been fired from my previous job for misconduct. It was a blow that nearly shattered my renewed confidence. One evening, while I was poring over damage control strategies in my office, Sarah came in. "Jack, have you seen the latest rumors Tom is spreading?" she asked, concern evident in her eyes. "Yeah, I have," I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I don't know how much more of this I can take." "Listen," she said firmly, "you can't let him win. You have too much at stake here. We all do." I looked at her, seeing not just a colleague, but a true friend standing by me. "You're right. I can't back down now." With Sarah and Lisa's support, I prepared to confront Tom head-on. The investors had scheduled a crucial meeting to discuss the future of the startup, and I knew this was my chance to clear my name and save everything we had worked for. The day the meeting arrived and the tension in the room was palpable. The investors sat around the large conference table, murmuring among themselves. Tom sat smugly, clearly confident that his lies had done their job. Lisa opened the meeting. "Thank you all for being here. We have some important issues to address today." I took a deep breath and stood up. "Before we proceed, there's something I need to discuss regarding the recent rumors about me." Tom smirked, but I ignored him. "These rumors are false. I have here documented evidence disproving every single claim made against me." I handed out copies to each investor. "Moreover, I have proof that Tom has been actively sabotaging our efforts." The room fell silent as the investors reviewed the documents. Murmurs of disbelief and anger filled the air. One of the investors, Mr. Reynolds, looked up. "Tom, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Tom stammered. "This is a setup. He's trying to frame me." But the evidence was irrefutable. The investors sided with me, and Tom was unceremoniously dismissed from the company. After the meeting, Lisa approached me. "You did it, Jack. You saved us." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I couldn't have done it without you and Sarah. Sarah joined us, a proud smile on her face. "We knew you had it in you." That night, as I walked home, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of my past failures had finally lifted, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and belonging. I had faced my moment of truth and emerged victorious, not just for the company, but for myself. As I sit in my corner office with a view of the bustling streets of New York, I can't help but reflect on the incredible journey that brought me here. It's been a roller coaster of emotions and unexpected twists, but I finally feel like I've found my place. Little did I know that the biggest revelation was yet to come. One afternoon, as the sun was setting and casting a warm glow over the city, Sarah walked into my office. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. Sarah had always been my rock, my confidant, the person who helped me navigate the treacherous waters of the startup world. But today, something was different. "Jack, can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" I replied, gesturing for her to take a seat. She sat down, taking a deep breath before speaking. There's something I need to tell you, something that I've been hiding for a long time. My heart began to race. What could she possibly be hiding? I leaned forward, giving her my full attention. I'm Tom's sister, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, I couldn't process what she had just said. Tom, the man who had tried to sabotage my efforts, the one who had made my life a living hell, was her brother? I felt a mix of shock, betrayal, and confusion. You're his sister, I repeated, trying to wrap my head around it. Yes, she said, her eyes filling with tears. At first, I approached you to keep an eye on your actions. Tom wanted to ensure you wouldn't succeed. But as I got to know you, I realized how wrong he was. You were different, Jack. You had a vision, a passion that I believed in. I started to care about you genuinely, and I knew I had to tell you the truth. I stood up, pacing the room as I tried to process this revelation. So all this time, you were spying on me for Tom? At the beginning, yes. But it didn't take long for me to see how wrong he was. I fell in love with you, Jack. I believed in you and your potential. I wanted to help you, to support you. And I did, didn't I? I stopped and looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. She had been there for me during my darkest moments, offering support and guidance. But this revelation felt like a dagger to my heart. I need some time to think, I said, my voice strained. This is a lot to take in. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Take all the time you need. Just know that I never meant to hurt you. For the next few days, I was a mess of emotions. I couldn't believe that the person I'd come to trust so deeply was connected to the man who tried to ruin me. But as I reflected on everything Sarah had done for me, I realized that her actions spoke louder than her initial intentions. She had been instrumental in my growth, both personally and professionally. One evening, I decided it was time to confront my feelings. I called Sarah and asked her to meet me at our favorite coffee shop. When she arrived, I could see the anxiety written all over her face. Jack, she began, but I held up my hand to stop her. Let me talk, I said, taking a deep breath. I was hurt when you told me about Tom. It felt like a betrayal. But I've had time to think, and I realized that people make mistakes. You chose to support me, to stand by me, even when it meant going against your brother. That means a lot to me. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time they seemed to be tears of relief. Thank you, Jack. I love you, and I believe in you. I love you too, Sarah, I said, reaching out to hold her hand. Let's put the past behind us and focus on building a future together. As we sat there holding hands and sharing our hopes and dreams, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Forgiveness and second chances had brought me to this moment, and I knew that with Sarah by my side, there was nothing we couldn't achieve. Life had thrown its challenges at me, but it had also given me the opportunity for redemption. And for that, I was truly grateful.